They took everything from us. Because magic runs through us.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Catherine. I used to think that I'm not a fantasy stories fan at all, but Cursed made me realize that if the story and characters are interesting, even fantasy can be something for me. And I'm curious how much you are into the stories which are out of this world.
I'm very glad to hear that. I grew up a fan of the fantasy and sci-fi genre because it's something that my dad really loved. So, it's something that I've always really enjoyed. And I think there's just something about it that speaks to me. But what stands out for me when I watch something that's a fantasy or sci-fi genre or that's sort of removed or out of this world is when they touch on things that are relevant or that resonate with us. And I think that's what makes good fantasy, is that it provides escapism, but it also feels relatable.
Your character wanted to be a knight when he was a child. And what about you? Have you always wanted to be an actor?
I thought you were going to say a knight, and I was going to say yes.
Sorry.
No, I grew up in a very sporty family, so I wanted to play basketball growing up. Then I never got taller, so that I gave that up quickly. But yeah, no, I it's really funny. I wanted to be an actor at the end of high school. I was like, I want to be an actor, and they were like, do you have any other options that you'd like to do? And I was like, I guess journalist. And so, yeah, it was like a long path to becoming an actor, but I say long path, it was like a year journey. And then, and yeah, I am obsessed with acting. The more I do it, the more I love it.
Has a character like Merlin always been on the list of the characters you would like to play, or was it something completely unexpected for you?
It was unexpected because I had never imagined a Merlin like this before. This is not any Merlin we've seen before. So when I read the script, I was like, yes, that's the Merlin I want to play, And so I think it's just such a brilliant reimagination of the character. Yeah.
For me, this Merlin is full of contradiction, and that's why I think it's not so easy to say if we like him or not. What was the biggest challenge in building this character for you?
Well, I think the challenge is to sort of, because he's so multifaceted, so to sort of like find the balance of when he is eccentric, when he is real, when he is manipulative, when he is earnest, when is he, and it's really interesting because there are so many layers at play all the time, and it's good that you don't really know where you have this character, and then eventually you've seen so far, so then eventually he doesn't even know where he is himself, because all of a sudden the stakes are high even for Merlin. He can't, he has lost his magic, and all of a sudden the stakes are up for him, and suddenly he starts caring about something outside of himself for the first time ever, and that's a new situation for him.
In Cursed, you play a villain, a whipping monk, and I know that actors usually try to understand their characters even if they are bad ones. And what about you? Do you see any good qualities in your character?
Oh yeah, always. Like I always look for bad qualities in good characters. There's always a version of somebody that can be explained. So with this character particularly, there's a lot to unpack. Like how do you get to that point? How do you get to the point of being that irritated, that disturbed, and that ruthless? How do you get there? But I don't think it takes much, unfortunately, for human beings to get there. And so my job is just to go in and unpack what that could possibly be, and I talk to Tom about it, and then you work on it and you build a narrative, and then you build a body, you know, you build what the body looks like, and then the costume, and you kind of like just piece it together until you feel like, oh, this is what this person looks like, this is what this person thinks, and this is the version of a human being that's gone through a very troubled, difficult past, and eventually you come to a point of like, what does the internal conflict look like? What are the things going on the outer? What are the things going on the inner? And then like, are you telling the story that Tom's written? And so you kind of have to meet all those things and just play with it. But also, I don't have, you know, I'm not in it a lot. I kind of come in, I don't say a lot. So a lot of my story has to be told through movement, as opposed to words, which I love that. That's my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Curse is not only a fresh view of Arthurian legend, but also about a lot of up-to-date problems like intolerance, like violence. What in this story has touched you the most?
I think in this story, people fighting for what they believe in and what they believe to be right. And at the core of our show, we're basically saying that everyone deserves to be treated like a human being fairly and justly. And that's the bottom line. There should be no discussion about that. And so I think that's the main thing that I like about it, definitely.
Everyone, I think, some more, some less, knows the legend of King Arthur, and thanks to the curse, they will see it from other female perspective. What do you think? What can be the biggest surprise for the viewers?
There will be a few surprises. We are definitely pushing this mythology, pushing the envelope in a hopefully exciting way. And I think first and foremost, to tell this story through the point of view of Nimue, who audiences may not be that familiar with, but for us, she captured this aspect of magic and mystery, and there was an aspect of tragedy just to that image of the woman holding and offering the sword out of the water to Arthur that, to me, suggested so much and such an untold story that from there, as we began to kind of wind back to who she might have been, I think we started to find all sorts of story opportunities of a character that could really have influenced this mythology in ways no one realized. And then I was just excited we were both excited to, create, or at least add to women heroes of this mythology that my daughter could connect to, that she could become attached to this mythology the way we did growing up as kids. That was really kind of the appealing aspect. And I do think that will be the most surprising aspect of, a woman held the sort of power before King Arthur.
Your character, Nimue, is very strong, independent, and brave young woman. Do you think you have a lot in common?
I mean, when you put it like that, I'd love to think so. She has a tremendous amount of courage, and we see her being so brave. But I think what makes her human, and what I probably resonate with, some of the things that make her not, this flawless hero, if you will. When we first see her, she's quite restless, and she doesn't really know who she is or where she fits in. And I think for everyone, regardless of what age you are or who you are, at different points in our life, we're all trying to figure out what that special thing is inside of us and kind of what our purpose is and where we fit and belong.
In Netflix movie Barry, you played Barack Obama. Now you are King Arthur. What is more challenging, playing a living legend or a legendary character who has appeared in many movies and many TV series?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was more challenging. I think they have their own challenges, both of them. But I would probably say, I mean, I would say I have more leeway to do what I want within Arthur, because I can build my own character in what is Devon's version and Tom and Frank's version of Arthur. Whereas with Obama, it's like, if the voice isn't good enough, or then everyone's like, that's terrible, move on. But I love both characters like deeply, and I hope people resonate with Arthur as well.
Your character lives in a magical world. That's why I'm curious, what is your opinion about magic and experience with it? I mean, have you ever talked to a fairy and read and believe in horoscopes?
I've never talked to a fairy, and horoscopes. I'm not saying that, you know, the planetary constellation at any given time is irrelevant to our souls or our experience, but I think that the interpretations of horoscope might be a bit arbitrary. Having said that, the way I define magic is, or a way you could define magic is, whatever is beyond our horizon of knowledge. And there's a lot of things beyond the horizon of our knowledge. We can only look to ourselves and see to the dream aspect of ourselves. Every night we check out from this reality and we enter into a dream world. We don't know why. We don't even know why we need to do this. We fall asleep every night. That's the magical aspect of ourselves. You know, we don't know what happens ultimately when we die. You know, that's another horizon of our knowledge. So if you're curious into that thing, and if your mind is open to want to explore beyond the horizon of our knowledge, you could call that magic.
What was the most exciting experience for you while working on the set, for you as an actor?
Most exciting? Well, to be involved in a Frank Miller thing is so exciting. You know, when you put when Frank is a part of putting together this character, you know, what he looks like, what the look of this character is, you're immediately excited because you get to play in this world. You know, you get to kind of explore in this world. So, you know, the great thing is it takes an hour to put that costume on, you know, to put the whole thing on. But by the end of it, by the end of the hour, you're so shrouded and you're so hooded and you've got so much, you're so angry at being up that early to get into costume that you're, you know, you're in the space very quickly, you know, and you feel the weight of this person because the cape is there, you know. So there are real benefits to going through that transformation with a costume, and that's the most fun, you know, putting that on. It's not fun to get up that early in the morning, but once you have it on and you're in it, you're like, you know, it's what I imagine being, you know, a superhero feels like. You put on this thing to explore or to express, and so it's great. It's great fun to do that.
At the beginning of this show, your character has to hide her real identity and also her feelings. What would you like to say to all these viewers who are dealing with the same problems, but in real life?
That's such a beautiful question. Yeah, I think it's about finding the courage to be yourself truly. I think, you know, we're all on that journey to some extent. You know, I definitely think I'm on that journey to some extent as well, you know. And I think that's the beauty of life, really, is that there is no definite final answer of who you are. You're constantly growing and changing and learning. But I would just say being open and constantly talking to people you trust around you to help you. Yeah, and just know that mainly, whatever it is that's happening, you're not alone. None of us are. In all of our troubles, we're all going through the same thing, and sometimes that's really hard to believe. And so I would just say, yeah, remember that you're not alone.
In this story, we have many female characters who are very strong, who are independent, have their own opinion. And I'm curious, has this whole situation in film industry, but not only in film industry, and Me Too movement, had any impact on creating this female point of view?
Oh, I've got to jump in on that. I think that, I mean, nothing comes out of a vacuum, and we're all affected by what's going on in the world around us. And so I think the answer is undeniably yes. But and in fact, the answer is of course, because the what is going on is in the world is so huge that artists have to answer it, and artists have to address it, and the imbalance, socially, economically, etc., has tilted further and further in a direction that many of us find so indecent that of course we're jumping in and doing what artists can do, which is make up stories.
What was the most challenging for you as an actress while working on the set?
I mean, for me, it was a completely new experience in terms of the genre. And there's a lot of things that come with this genre that were new. You know, learning such a vast skill set in a short period of time was definitely a challenge, but something that I was also really excited about. But I definitely think that having the insight of being able to film this, it's given me a lot more respect for these epic pieces that you see, because what you don't see sort of on screen, or what you don't feel, are the cold nights or the nights where the weather might have got us. It might have been snowing, but it looks like summer. And I think just also in terms of the training, maintaining that for such a long period of time, for a 10-month shoot, it definitely made me, I think, realize how much sense it makes when you hear about people training for 8 months, a year for these roles, because you have to not only have that skill, but be able to perform it on screen flawlessly, and also maintain it for such a long time without getting injured or without it sort of affecting you in a way.
I've always wondered how actors learn to use and to work with a sword. Is it really hard? How was it in your case?
I think everybody, I went in there being like, oh, this is going to be easy. This is like, I don't even have to practice. I'm just going to start doing this everywhere. And then you realized when you're acting and you're talking and you're in a scene and you're bleeding yourself, and then you go to flick your knife in your hand and it falls out of your hand. They're like, okay, well, cool, cut. We're going to have to do that all again. So you realize you have to be really on the physical side of the character. And I love that stuff. I loved all about it. You know, getting on a horse, wielding a sword, going to those battle scenes are some of the most like mind-blowing, because I'm watching it on screen and I'm like, wow, that's really intense. But I just remember being in the moment, having someone running at you and being like, if I miss this, I'm going to get hit in the head with this. So you have to focus a lot.
And for me personally, this story, this show, it's really up to date. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, the Arthurian legend has been told many, many times over centuries, and it's always adapted and changed. But it's more about the story is actually more about where we are telling the story than it is about an old ancient story. There's a reason why this story is new and fresh and interesting, is because we have a different way of telling the story now. Like we have a different lens by which we tell this story. Like we don't have to tell it from a male perspective. You can tell it from a female perspective. You can subvert certain character ideas, right? You know, these people look like this, they are this, you know, and it's all subverted because, you know, I think it tells the story of where we are now, which is always, that's always great. It's like, you know, you can plot where we are culturally by the stories that we tell and the way we tell them.
let's go back to the legendary characters. Is there any legendary character you would love to play?
Whoa, that's a great question. My dream role in terms of a legend was probably like Jimi Hendrix, or
great.
even Arthur Ashe. He's like a famous tennis player. There's amazing roles out like left, right, and center. If you need a biopic person, I'm here to. I'm available. But yeah, I love all kinds of characters. I really want to push myself to see what's inside of me and how I can bring things to life.
Thank you very much. It was a huge pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Oh, likewise. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You are the nicest person ever. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And I have to add one thing. I love your blouse. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm getting a lot of compliments today. Thank you. It's Alessandra Rich.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is our only chance at survival.